This is Hugo Frere from Tantric, and you're listening to Fascination Street Podcast.
I believe that everybody has a story, and I'm fascinated to hear them. So come with me as we take a walk down Fascination Street. Welcome back, Streetwalkers. A few months ago, I was listening to my buddy Stephen O'Reilly's podcast called The Barstar Podcast. As I always do, previous guest, you know him, you love him. And on that episode, he had a guest named Dusty Bow. I enjoyed that episode so much, and the single that came out a couple of weeks before it on the Barstar Podcast called Bandit. I enjoyed those two so much that I reached out to Dusty and got him on my show. So thank you, Stephen O'Reilly, as always, for that. I appreciate it. In this episode, we get to know Dusty Bow. We talk about what made him leave Louisville to go to L.A. to become a rock star. We also talk about some of his experiences in Los Angeles, some of the bars he played at and the bands he played with. And it turns out we have a mutual friend. A previous guest of this show even. We also talk about what it was like to go on a North American tour with a giant band as a supporting act. Plus, Dusty's new album, The Vulture and The Fox, which is either about to come out or just came out, depending on how Corona is affecting us now. He also lets me play a song off of this album, and it is dope. So enjoy, folks. This was recorded during all the self-distancing due to the coronavirus outbreak. So if that is over by now, woohoo. If not, damn it. But either way, this is my conversation with Dusty Bow.
Yeah, talk to me, yeah.
Welcome to Fascination Street Podcast, Dusty Bow. How you doing today, Dusty?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I am fantastic. A little bit of background, Streetwalkers. I was listening to a friend of the show and a buddy of mine, Stephen O'Reilly's podcast, the Barstar Podcast, and he had Dusty Bow on as his guest, and I loved it. So naturally, I reached out to Dusty, and now here we are. So thank you, Stephen O'Reilly from the Barstar Podcast, and thank you, Dusty, for doing this.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Oh, 100%. The pleasure is mine, man. First of all, how did you get a name like Dusty Bottoms?
Well, I mean, if it's not obvious enough, this is Spinal Tap. Can't really pass up on that one, Name's Dustin. Okay, yeah, that's what I'm changing it to. Let it be written in stone.
There you go. So, Dusty, tell me, where were you born and raised, man? Where are you from?
I was born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky. I started playing guitar when I was 7. I started playing live when I was a teenager, I'd say 15 years old. And then I started my first band in my late teens.
So born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky, right?
Yeah. Born and raised, graduated from Eastern High School. I've been, playing music since I was 7 and started singing probably age 14, 15, performing live, late teens.
So what did your parents do? Like, what were they from Louisville? Did they come to Louisville? What do your parents do?
They met in Ohio. My mom was born in Nashua, New Hampshire. Dad was born in Cincinnati. And then he actually, after he graduated college, he hitchhiked out to Huntington Beach. He lived out there in the Orange County area for, I think, 2 years. And then he came back to Cincinnati where he met my mom. He was selling cars, which he just retired. He'd been selling cars for 40 years until this year. And mom works for this company called Forever. And it used to be called Creative Memories, but she was like really big into scrapbooking when that was a thing. Like it's all digital and stuff now. But, for as long as I can remember, really, I think I was probably 5 or 6 when she started doing these scrapbooks. And like she would not just make them, but she would make them for other people. And she would have these like classes and retreats where she'd show these ladies how to use all these like crazy cropping tools and different kinds of paper and stuff. So she's definitely where my creativity comes from, is Madre.
That's really cool. Scrapbooking. Yeah. For those of you who are listening now who don't know, I guess, scrapbooking was a huge deal. Like they probably had 2 or 3 entire aisles at Hobby Lobby and Michael's. I mean, there was stamps and cutouts and tape and special paper and albums and all kinds of crazy stuff. So that was a really big deal. That's kind of cool, man.
Yeah, it was neat. You know, when it comes to photo albums, a lot of times you just think of, you know, a binder that has a bunch of just pictures in it, but it's unreal, some of these scrapbooks and photo albums my mom would make. And like you said, there's all kinds of stickers and paper and different kinds of, you know, scissors and just angle cutters and this, that, and the other. You know, she was so into it. They actually built another sunroom in our house, like, because she was having classes and they needed more room so she could have all these other people over to scrapbook and whatnot. So, and it's just awesome actually having like all these physical books with, you know, photos of documenting me and my brother or our entire family's lives from the day that me and my brother were born, you know, so it's pretty neat.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that's gotten lost in this digital world is now you don't really sit at your parents' house or whatever and flip through that photo album and you know, see you and your sister doing dumbass acrobatics in your underwear when you were a kid. You know, now it's like if you want to see pictures, you got to hand somebody your phone or something like that. It's a little bizarre. We've turned a bizarre corner in that regard.
I agree.
So I used to live in Louisville.
Oh, whereabout?
I don't remember any of the streets except my neighborhood was called Beckley Manor. And
Beckley Station. Okay.
Yeah, over there by Lake Forest.
Yeah,
Is that a thing? Yeah, over there.
Absolutely.
Beckley. I was the very last street before, because those two neighborhoods connect, and I was on the very last street before Lake Forest. So I was on Beckley Trace.
Gotcha.
We're from San Antonio and lived here forever, and then my wife got an unbelievable job opportunity. So, but it required us to move to Louisville. So we lived there. You know, we wouldn't have taken the job if our kids hadn't graduated and already moved out of the house. So we moved there, and it was really funny. So, you know, coming from Texas, from San Antonio, we had to move there because that's where the company was headquartered. But what they had my wife doing was working in Texas. So,
interesting.
So, yeah. So for about 1.5 years, I was living in Louisville almost by myself. You know, she would come home on the weekends.
Wow.
And so after 1.5 years of that, she told that company, look, this is cool and all, but I'm going back home to Texas.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll still work for y'all if y'all want, but regardless, I'm going back home. And then they were like, that's fine. You can still work for us. So crazy.
Man.
But also, I think Tom Cruise and even Chris Hardwick were born in Louisville.
Yeah. Tom Cruise went to Trinity High School, which is right down the street from where I live. And who else is? Clooney.
Jennifer Lawrence.
Oh, Jennifer Lawrence. Yeah, she's from Louisville as well.
Did you say Clooney?
Clooney's from some part of Kentucky. I think it's actually Owensboro.
Oh, that's nuts.
Yeah.
You know, you wouldn't think that since his family has been in Hollywood for generations. That's weird.
Yeah, it is wild.
But anyway, fuck those idiots. We're here
Fuck
to talk
those
about
idiots.
you.
Fuck those losers.
Hey, you can't cuss on here, man. What's wrong with you?
I'm just following your lead, bro.
So you start getting into music at a pretty early age. How come? Was music prevalent in your household, or did your parents play or sing or something? Why music?
Yeah, so my dad played guitar. You know, he started playing it, I think, when he was a teenager as well. And so he had one that would be around the house. And, you know, so he'd play it and I'd, you know, listen to him play. And sometimes he'd let me strum along and whatnot. But I was 7, maybe even 6. I think I was 7, though, when we went to go to the Louisville Palace to see Earth, Wind, and Fire. You know, I'd seen pictures of guitar players and, you know, my dad's records and stuff. And he was a huge Beatles fan, really into Jimi Hendrix and Led Zeppelin and the Eagles. And so, you know, I remember flipping through those books and whatnot and seeing other people, you know, with guitars and stuff. But when we went to that concert, I remember very vividly, it was the bass player, though, after I kind of went back and researched, because I remember the guy, he was a real tall guy, had long black hair. And I remember seeing him, and then I think it was one of the horn players or another guitar player, somebody coming to the center of the stage, and they had the biggest smiles on their faces. And I was like, that just seems like so much fun, because everybody started cheering and getting louder. And there was just this amount of energy that I had never felt before, you know, obviously being 7 years old, and that being my first show ever, which I don't know. Did you ever go to the Louisville Palace when you lived here?
No, I only went to 2 or 3 venues, and I can't remember the name of any of them. One I want to say was called like Headliners or something like that. Oh
yeah, Headliners. I'd say probably the next step up from Headliners as an artist would be playing the Palace.
Gotcha.
So after that, we went to Chicago in the early stages of winter, and we went to the FAO Shorts toy store, which is the same toy store in that movie Big where they're jumping on the big piano.
Hell yeah.
I don't even know if it's still there anymore. I know the one in New York's not there, but this one in Chicago. So, obviously that was heaven being in that toy store. And then there was this guitar, but it was one of those like toy guitars that, you push a button and it makes a noise. Like it plays like this really sweet guitar riff or whatever. And, had a bunch of buttons that made different sounds and this, that, and the other. And I told my mom and dad, I was like, this is what I want for Christmas. And Christmas comes around and they had actually gotten me a real guitar. It was like, I say real guitar, but it was powered by a 9-volt battery.
Sure. It was a kid's guitar.
It was a kid's guitar, but it still had strings and tuner, you know what I mean? And it had a built-in speaker. So I actually wish I still have half of it. Yeah, I got all like, after I saw there's some special on, and it was the Monterey Pop Festival where Jimi Hendrix sets his guitar on fire.
Yeah.
So naturally, a week or so goes by, and I had a bunch of car model paint. So I tried to paint my guitar to look like his, but even though I just splattered a bunch of paint all over it, and then I took it outside. I didn't set it on fire, but I smashed it against my tree house. And I was like, this will be fun. And then come to find out that I wasn't going to be able to use the guitar anymore. Fortunately, he got me another one for my birthday. I was 8 and a half or 9 or something like that whenever I got the next guitar. And, once I got that one, especially because that one had like an amp, it was legit, with a cable. And that one I still have. Well, I gifted it to a friend's daughter for a Christmas present last year for her first guitar. But yeah, so I would play for hours a day. That was my thing. I just immediately fell in love with it. And when I got to the point where my dad asked if I wanted to start taking lessons, I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. He was explaining how I would get better from it, taking lessons. So I would, go to lessons, and I already knew at that point I'd been playing so many hours a day, jamming along with like Queen and AC/DC and Skynyrd and the Beatles and stuff. I already knew how to play a bunch of songs. I hadn't written anything on my own yet. I was 9 or 10, but I knew how to play a bunch of stuff that would keep me occupied. So I'd go to the lessons, and I would do well there. The instructor would show me how to do this, things and whatnot. And then he'd give me homework to go home and work on stuff for the next week's lesson. And I'd get home and I didn't want to do any homework. That was the whole point of why I liked playing. That was my not school activity. And so, yeah, I was a guitar player from, but literally I started playing guitar before I knew how to tie my shoes, and kept playing. And high school is when I started singing and started writing my own music.
Oh, wow. That's been a few years. Have you learned how to tie your shoes yet?
I just did. A few years ago, I was rocking the Velcro and the slip-ons, and, an ex-girlfriend of mine was like, you have to learn how to do this. I was like, okay, cool.
Very cool. Very cool. So did she teach you the 2 bunny rabbits method?
She did.
Now, you said that your dad was listening to a lot of Hendrix and stuff like that. And what immediately popped into my mind was, of course he was. This is the guy who hitchhiked from Cincinnati to Huntington Beach.
Yeah.
I would expect nothing less than Hendrix in his stereo.
Oh, yeah. Anything classic rock, he had in his arsenal, for sure.
Well, to be fair, back then it was just called rock.
Back then it was just rock and roll. Yeah, indeed it was.
So you're in a band, I'm assuming in high school, right? Not the band, but a band. Well, you're not in band.
No. I wasn't. I wish I would have, actually gotten involved with band or choir and, learned a little bit more about, actual music theory and, just learning how to read music. Because still to this day, I'm not very inclined with that. But I was not able to form my first band until right after I graduated high school. And I tried starting in middle school. I had a buddy that got a drum kit and that we'd jam and, Green Day covers and ZZ Top and stuff. But then I was also an athlete and so is he. And then so he ended up kind of giving up on the drums and whatnot. But I'd go around to people. I remember even asking a few people in 7th and 8th grade, bass players and other singers and other guitar players if they wanted to start a band. And nobody wanted to play rock and roll. People either wanted to play metal or punk or stuff that I wasn't into. I wanted to play rock. But then I came along with this girl that I had known for a while, and she was a really good singer-songwriter. She was like, we should get together and jam sometime. And I knew she was in like the music scene that was extensive throughout the city, not just our high school. I knew she had known other people that were in bands and stuff. And I was like, okay, yeah, let's try this. So then me and her started writing songs together and started actually performing live, and recording in a studio, too. That was the first time I ever did any legit recordings in a studio with my own songs. Was when I was I think I was a junior in high school. So I was trying to get it to the point where, that's where the starting block was, where we would be playing acoustic sets and this and that and the other. And then we would move on to getting other members to form a band. And she went off to college and I was kind of back on my own again. And then I was actually planning on moving. I had started working a second job because I was going to save up money and move to either Nashville or Los Angeles, because I had been to Los Angeles a couple times prior while I was in high school just for family vacations. And I immediately fell in love with it, especially knowing about the history and the studios that were there and the Sunset Strip, and a lot of my favorite bands, that's where they got their start and their break too. So I had a quick love for that area. My very first band we were called One Giant Leap. I mentioned that, I think, on the Barstar podcast, and did not come up with that, but I was a team player. So I was like, okay, whatever, we'll take it. We played around town and, a good amount, and then had a couple people come in and out of the lineup. And then my good friend Luke, who I met working at Mom's Music, which is where I met Steven as well. That band became Bolt Action Thrill. So we went, One Giant Leap was real, I was really into Incubus at the time, and bands like Chevelle and 3 Days Grace. So we were kind of this mix of active radio, alternative rock meets psychedelic kind of funk rock in a way. It was pretty out there. It was fun. But then when we formed Bolt Action Thrill, that was when we kind of started honing in our classic and bluesy hard rock chops, very AC/DC, Motley Crue kind of GNR, almost ZZ Top kind of stuff. It was a lot more just straight up bluesy rock and roll. We formed Bolt, and then I want to say it was we only played around town. It was for 6 months. It was definitely under a year. And then, I kind of had this moment where I was like, we need to do something. I don't want to just sit around and play here for a few years and then get burnt out and then that be it. I was like, I wanted to either get on the road or make a move. And, I'd have been having these kind of moments where I'd wanted to just pick up and leave and go to California. So I messaged all the guys in the band to see what they thought about it. And so we got together and we met up and we talked about it, and we, decided that we were going to, and gave ourselves half a year to save up money and plan to get out there. And we did.
All of you went?
All of us went. Yeah, there was 4 of us. And then my brother came along with us as well, who was a big help, huge help for me, not just the bands that I was in, but for me personally and career wise. He was a huge help with getting, because he worked for Clear Channel Radio.
Oh, okay.
So he got us in. We never got any radio play from it and stuff, but we got cool opportunities presented, and got some promotions for certain shows with a different band down the line. But so yeah, he came out there, and our bass player's brother came out too, who was a photographer and a really good with computers and graphic design and stuff. So we had this good support group for the band. My brother was very business savvy and helped out a lot with logistics. And Ronnie, our bass player's brother, who's a photographer and computer guy, was just great. We'd have all these great from live photos from our shows and, photo shoots and this, that, and the other. So it was going really well for a bit. And then things happened. And a couple of years later, that band came to an end, and I kind of felt it happening because we had made a lineup change and we got, a new bass player and drummer. And then because things happened, just, we couldn't come to terms on certain things. And then we recorded a record that ended up doing well throughout the city and the scene and whatnot. But
was that record with the new lineup or the old lineup?
Well, we played it with the new lineup and we recorded it. It was just me and Luke, who are the songwriters, and we kind of did like a split, almost like a rock and roll kind of Brooks and Dunn thing. Like we both sang lead on songs and we both did lead guitar, and we were kind of like dual frontmen, We wrote the song or the album with this producer, Tom Chandler, and then our buddy Zach, who is a great live drummer and great session drummer. He played drums on it, and then Tom, the producer, played bass. So it was recorded kind of as just almost hired guns, and then me and Luke. And then after we recorded the record, we went out and found new band members.
Gotcha.
And it's probably a year after we released the record. We played for about a year, and we're doing whatever we could. And we were making a splash in what was like the tail end of the Hollywood music scene, which was a bummer to see that kind of die, but also it was pretty cool to be a part of it, for a little bit. But we were starting to develop a following, and then, things just kind of fizzed out and people went different ways.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors.
It is 2140. You are trapped in an underground bunker, built a century ago to protect mankind from the pandemic on the surface. Now ruled by tyrants and their robot army. You are an outcast, an orphan, a scavenger, blind, afraid, and alone. You are Ace, a survivor, and you will try to escape this place known as Subterra. Subscribe to Subterra at iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you download podcasts.
Let's get back into it.
I had been approached by another band that was very modern, like active radio rock focused. I'd say like a lot like Buck Cherry or Papa Roach. Like that's the kind of the crowds that we were going for and whatnot. But it was also very classic hard rock influence, AC/DC and Zeppelin, and like all we were trying to be a lot like and follow like the steps like Velvet Revolver. Like we were really into that kind of classic rock, but with modern rock production.
Gotcha.
That was called Future Villains. Once I joined them, we did a 5-song EP, and then things started picking up for that band more rapidly than they were for Bolt, because it was very much more into the flavor of the people in Hollywood. With Bolt Action Thrill, it was cool because we stood out being a Southern rock band out in Hollywood, but at the same time, there was a lot less. There wasn't as much, like, I guess, commercial, not as many bills that we were able to get on. More people were just interested in Future Villains. I think we had like a better package. We looked cohesive. The sounds, the songs were very much in the Hollywood rock scenes, like the lane, that everybody was kind of going in. So we played around town for about a year, 2 years, and then we started getting picked up on tours and getting attention from, labels and stuff after that. And do you know who Steel Panther is?
Of course.
They took us out a few times, but in 2014, I think is when it was. Yeah, 2014, they just released the All You Can Eat album and brought us out for that entire North American tour as their direct support. So that was really what kind of launched the momentum with the band.
Well, let's go back to those days in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
Hollywood is full of some of the most iconic live music venues in the world.
Yes.
Tell me about some of the cool places you got to play when you were in Hollywood.
All the venues on the Strip we got to do, like the Roxy, the Whiskey. The Viper Room was for Future Villains, that was our stomping grounds. Like we played there a good amount. And the Troubadour, the House of Blues that was out, that's not there anymore. The Key Club, which was also on the Strip, that's now not hip hop, it's just a dance club, a nightclub that Jay-Z bought out called One Oak. The Cat Club, that was like the dive bar on the Strip that Slim Jim Phantom from the Stray Cats, him and a couple other guys started it, I think in the late 80s. But yeah, that they all got torn down, and not, the only ones still standing are the Viper Room, the Roxy, and the Whiskey. The Troubadour as well. That one's not actually on the Strip, but it's still in West Hollywood. It's still in that area. Awesome venues, especially the Viper. Whenever I go back out to LA, I book the Viper Room because they have a great staff and an amazing sound system, and it's just they're family. They're great people.
Now, at one time, kids, back in the early to mid 90s, Johnny Depp owned that bar.
Yeah.
Sure, he doesn't anymore. I think he got rid of it when all that tragedy happened with River Phoenix.
Yes. I can never remember what it was called before the Viper Room. It was something else, and then he bought it, and then it became the Viper Room, and they had a lot of big-time artists. They still have a good amount of people come through, and they'll do secret shows here and there. But I mean, when Depp owned it, I believe Tom Petty, Stone Temple Pilots. There was a lot of people that were really, really huge at that time that performed there, because it was obviously who's gonna turn down playing Johnny Depp's venue while he owns it, or even now, the Viper Room's it's still badass, and they have great artists there frequently. And that was one of the cool things about the Viper Room is not only were they fair to the people that play there and they take care of the artists, but you don't see a bad performance there. They won't, if you're not ready to play there, then they won't have you play there. A lot of other places won't name any names of the venues, but a lot of other places would take anybody as long as they were willing to do the whole pay to play thing. I don't know if you've heard about that out there.
What do you mean?
So there's a system that they have out there for some of the venues to where they would have the bands sign a contract pretty much saying that you'll sell this amount of tickets. They'll give you a certain amount of tickets and that you will sell them for whatever you want, but you need to give them a minimum of $600 the day of the show, or your set time gets cut in half. And until you pay that, you won't be welcome to play back at that specific venue. So, for example, we would get 60 tickets and we'd have to sell all those tickets for $10 a pop or whatever. We could sell them for 15 if we wanted to, but it was hey, Hollywood's expensive. You got to pay $20 a park. It's $10 a drink. And we were new to town. So who's going to come pay $15, $20 to see this band that nobody knows? So we'd be out hustling on the Strip, trying to sell tickets and hopping in our cars to deliver tickets to people that we kind of knew or their friends, whatever. So by the day of the show, if we didn't sell, which we the first couple years out there, we would very rarely sell all 60 tickets. So we would have to pay out of our own pocket. Say we only sold 40 tickets. So then we got $400, but we got to give that venue $600 total. So we had to fork up $200 from the band out of our own pockets just so we could play the full set and not owe the venue any more money.
If the venue was packed and everybody was there to see you, but you had only sold 60 tickets, was there any sort of threshold where they ever paid you?
There were times we would work out deals with them because we got in on pretty good terms with the booker. There was a few times, where we would actually get paid. There were certain shows, an example, whenever the Steel Panther, they had a residency at that place, the Key Club that I mentioned earlier. And whenever you get on one of those spots, they would give you unlimited guest list, and then they'd give you $100.
Unlimited guest? Oh yeah, because they're going to buy drinks. So bring as many people as you want.
Yeah, exactly. And it was on a Monday night. Panther had the place, they would have it packed on their own, but this was just a way to get people in there early, and nobody's going to go in there and not buy drinks. So one time the Whiskey, this was actually the third or fourth time we had played the Whiskey, and this was great. This was actually one of the first really awesome things that happened. We got picked to play this hustler party at the Whiskey that was put on by the Free Speech Coalition. So they had Stormy Daniels and some other porn stars that were on this new DVD called Operation Tropical Stormy. They were promoting that. So they had this party at the Whiskey, and it was just we were in heaven because all these porn stars that we all recognized. And my parents were there. They flew in town to come to the show. And then our bass player's mom was there. And our bass player's mom won this raffle. They were giving away this giant porn basket that had sex toys and condoms and DVDs and fucking it was a funny day.
I wish that somebody would have put a GoPro on your friend's mom to see how she got that home on the airplane.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah. You know what? I don't know. I don't remember what happened with that basket.
Yeah, I bet nobody does. She was like, nothing to see here.
Yeah. Look away. And it's funny because that was 2009. So it was right before the smartphone. It wasn't even a smartphone. It had, I guess it technically was. It was like it had GPS on it and whatnot, but it didn't have a touch screen. The internet wasn't really worth a damn on it, whatever. But if it would have been 5 years ago, like, we would have gotten a lot of really great footage. You know, it's so much has changed, obviously, with the way that live shows are videoed and documented and stuff now. But I really, really wish that we would have had the technology today at that time, because it was a really good time.
That is hilarious. What can you tell me about Soundcheck Live?
Oh, man, Soundcheck Live's awesome. That got started by Steve Ferlazzo and Barry Pointer. Steve Ferlazzo is the musical director for Avril Lavigne.
Oh, okay.
And he was in a band with Nuno Betancourt.
Extreme?
No, it was after Extreme. Nuno was a lead singer.
Van Halen?
No. But he's good enough to do that stuff. Steve's one of the best. And he's an amazing keys player. Like, he can play anything. So there was a thing called Ultimate Jam Night. Oh, Drama Gods. That was the name of the band, Drama Gods. That was Nuno's band that Steve was in. But anyways, this thing called Ultimate Jam Night started at Lucky Strike Live in Hollywood. It was only supposed to be a couple of nights, and it was like Gilby Clarke, Chuck Wright from Quiet Riot, and then Matt Starr, who is now the drummer for Mr. Big, and he's been playing for Ace Frehley, and all these like really big time musicians that were, you know, either studio guys or just songwriters or, you know, artists. And they were just doing a couple nights where it was going to be like, hey, you know, we got these people coming out to play on these songs, and it made a lot of noise. So then Chuck Wright and Matt Starr, they started doing it weekly, and they would have anywhere from 50 to 70 different musicians a night. Each person would get up and play a song or two for two and a half hours. They'd have just, you know, and it would be pretty much all covers, you know, and sometimes they do originals, and because sometimes they'd have like people like Nuno Betancourt and Gary Sharon out, and then they would do extreme songs.
Now, Gary Sharon is the name I was thinking of when I said Van Halen.
Oh, yeah, Gary Sharon. Yeah, and he's so good. Did you ever see the tribute to Queen that Extreme did?
I did not.
Oh, man. They do like a 10-minute medley of Queen songs at Wembley Stadium, and it was for like AIDS benefit in the name of Freddie Mercury. It's as good as a band can get live. Like, it's just their harmonies, their musicianship. It's unreal. I'll send you the link for it once we get done. Very, very cool.
Oh, man, that'd be amazing. And you know what? Because nobody's going to sue me, I'm going to play 15 seconds of it right now.
Awesome.
That's rad, dude. Thank you so much, man. That's super cool. I didn't even know that existed. So thank you, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, of course. Sorry. So Soundchecks, after I'd say a year of them doing Ultimate Jam Night, there was just some issues between the venue and some of the guys that were running Ultimate Jam Night. So then they parted ways, and Ultimate Jam Night moved to the Whiskey, which Ultimate Jam Night was very much, and still kind of is, based around just classic rock. And it's awesome, but it's pretty much just a long hour and a half, sometimes 2 hour set of cover songs, primarily classic rock. Soundcheck Live is kind of a cooler twist on it. I would say it's not just classic rock. It's not just rock and roll. It's all genre, from the 50s and 60s Motown stuff to modern day pop, anything and everything gets played there. They'll have a guest curator every time. They do it once a month now instead of once a week. So it's kind of a bigger production, and they'll have Nuno come out and do guest stuff. They'll have Tom Morello out, Billy Sheehan from Mr. Big, Richie Coates, and like a lot of great players, come out there. And it's an awesome thing. It's like really entertaining and cool to like be a part of. But like that was a huge networking thing for me as well, because almost every time I performed, I would be on stage with somebody that one I had never performed with or somebody that I hadn't even met. So it was like there was just this big cycle of musicians that hadn't met each other. So it was a great networking opportunity as well for the players.
Now, I don't know if he was doing it back when you were there, but I know the MC of Soundcheck Live. Izzy Presley, yeah. Previous guest of this show, Izzy Presley.
Oh, cool. Yeah, Izzy's awesome.
He was one of my guests in maybe the first 6 months, definitely the first year of my show. Yeah, he's super rad. I love that dude.
He's hilarious. Right after Malcolm Young died, they did an AC/DC tribute to where it was they did 3 different sets. The first one was Dirty Deeds. Second one was Highway to Hell. The third one was Back in Black. And when we were doing the Back in Black set, it was Shook Me All Night Long. I was singing that. And then Steve Verlazzo, the guy that puts it all together, he came out and sang it. And so did Izzy. And there's actually, I'll have to find that too and send that to you. There's a really funny shot of me and Izzy like back to back singing on the same microphone on that song.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He's an awesome MC. He was really, really good at getting the crowd pumped up.
Yeah, he's hilarious. I think he also MCs like some hard rock cruise. Oh, the Kiss Cruise.
Oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because he has a Ace Frehley tribute band called ACK.
Yeah. He's a trip.
That's funny. And also, unrelated to Izzy, I guess, previous guest of the show, Jeremy Asbrock. Do you know him?
That sounds really familiar.
I think he lives in Nashville, but he is the touring guitar player for both Ace and Gene when they're not in Kiss.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And his wife is Hannah Fairlight, also previous guest of the show.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so we know all the same people. I mean, come on, dude.
It's a small world, man. It really is.
It's a tiny world. So speaking of a small world, you have an album that is either about to come out or just came out. It's really unclear based on your schedule, my schedule, and COVID's schedule.
Yeah.
So who knows when it's about to or if it did. Yeah. But is there a name for the album?
Yes, it's called The Vulture and The Fox.
Ooh, which one are you?
I'm both.
Wait a minute, then which one am I? Son of a...
I wish I had a clever response for that, but I don't.
I'm and.
You're and. Yeah, we just got to find the thes. But one of my friends did a tarot card reading with spirit animals on me once, and I'm not super into all that stuff where I follow it, or I live by it, I'll say. But she gave me this reading and let me know what it meant. One was the path and the other one was obstacles. And it was frightening how accurate they were, especially at the time she was reading them, like just what I was going through, and have honestly been kind of going through it, making the shift from being in bands to doing like a solo career. Cause this reading happened right before I kind of stopped playing in bands and started doing my solo thing. So that's pretty much what the album is kind of me, not just finding myself, taking the time to really find out who I am as a songwriter, but also just figuring out that I don't have to be just a one directional kind of guy. It's like, you don't have to just play country. You don't have to just play rock and roll. Do you want to have 6, 7, 10 different genres on your album and cross them all and mix them together? Cool. Why not? At this point in the way the music industry is, it's just like I've talked with so many people from labels and managers or A&R people, just whatever, like anybody and everyone. And it's like, you got to be just this one thing. You got to choose which way you're going to go. You can't be on the fence. You can't be a little bit of rock and roll. You can't be a little bit of country. And at this point, I'm like, well, fuck that. I'm going to do what I want to do. And if it catches on, it catches on. If not, at the end of the day, it's the songs that mean the most to me out of anything that I've ever written. And, The Vulture and the Fox is going to be the story of pretty much my journey when it started from me moving out to LA and leaving. And all the songs are based off of events and stories that have actually happened to me, but it's going to be portrayed by this gunfighter in the 1800s. moving out west to pursue a better life with some of his best friends and other business people and this, that, and the other. And he gets caught up with the wrong people. He falls in love. Relationship goes to shit, and then kind of just is like, all right, I've had enough of this chapter, so I'm moving on. So it's, I don't really know how to, I don't want to say like a spiritual discovery, but it's like having these like epiphanies of how it all has kind of worked out with the run that I've had so far and what I'm moving forward with doing. It's, so it's been a lot of fun to write it and actually portray it that way. This way, a lot of other people not only would enjoy following it, because it's not everyone will be able to relate to exactly the things that I've done. But I think this way, it's like, okay, yeah, it's kind of can be taken in different ways from different aspects of how it's going to be portrayed. So.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors.
If you'd like to help find answers for the families of unsolved crime victims from all over, or perhaps identify a Jane or John Doe, please visit DNAsolves.com, where you can submit your DNA from a consumer testing company like Ancestry or 23andMe to their database. DNAsolves.com.
Let's get back into it.
Well, I heard on the previously mentioned Stephen O'Reilly's The Barstar podcast a few months ago now, I heard your song Bandit.
Yes.
I think that was the world premiere.
Yeah.
So that song really struck a chord with me. And if I'm being completely honest, it was that song that got me excited about the forthcoming interview with you on that particular program. So that song is so beautiful. Like it.
Oh, thanks, man.
It's really, really good. I suggest everybody check at least Bandit out for sure. And I'm assuming the whole album. But think you're dropping a song a month?
Yeah.
Why and how?
Basically, the way that things are now, it's unless you're a really well-known artist, and even then, it's still kind of risky just putting an album out there without getting any kind of traction. Because if I were to do that, I would literally be just putting everything out that I have all at one time and not giving time to develop a following, but to really get anybody, interested in the album. You know what I'm saying? For anticipation and also to try to get some more followers, some people to find out about me. It's going to also kind of help with the storyline of, the gunfighter and stuff, because each song is going to have a music video and they all tie in together. Like the way the songs are going to be released as singles, that's not the order they will be in the album. It's almost going to be kind of like a Tarantino movie, and it's not going to really come together. It's not going to make all that much sense until you actually listen to the entire thing.
Gotcha.
But mainly just so I don't throw it all out there at one time, because once it's out there, and I'll still be able to promote different songs, and I'll still be able to push the album, and I'll be able to push singles when it's out. But where's the fire? I don't want to rush just throwing it all out there, and this way it just kind of keeps the momentum going for longer, because it's expensive and it takes time to write and record it. So I want to see what I can do with it, what kind of noise I can make, what kind of splash I can make.
Well, I think that for all creative people, that sort of what's the rush mindset is pretty healthy. And also, let's just take this podcast, for example. I have a lot of episodes in the bank.
Yeah.
And that gives me a little bit of comfort, because this is a weekly show. And so, if I'm down to, I got one episode in the bank and, next week is coming, then I start sweating, and I feel like it makes me less creative because I have a schedule and I'm a little more panicked in the realm of what's next.
Totally.
And so if you sort of string it along out there, like you said, what's the hurry? Then that frees up your mental capacity, I feel, to be creative, because you're not in a hurry to produce.
Yeah, totally, man. 100% agree.
So feel free to say no. It's quite all right. I'm not looking for an exclusive or a premiere, but can I play one of the songs off your new album?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You know what? The last single that's going to be out is the part where the character, whose name is Fox, by the way, he's this kind of wild gunfighter cowboy outlaw, but he, a few songs earlier, meets a girl, and then at this point he's realizing and telling her that she's it. He wants to be with her and kind of confessing his love to her. So the single version is only going to be about 3.5 to 3 minutes and 45 seconds long, but the album version is going to be about 7 and something, because there's a 2.5 minute guitar solo at the end. So that might be cool to play that one. the full version unless you want something shorter than that, which I totally understand.
No, that'd be rad.
Yeah, because that's one thing I want to try to do also with the album. And my friend that I spoke with not long ago, she's been working for record labels for the last decade, and she kind of advised against this, but I still want to do it to where there's going to be album versions of the songs. And there's also going to be like, I don't know if you've ever seen on like when you try to get an album or a song off of iTunes and it says album purchase only, like you can only download
Yes.
that. Okay, so I would like to do that because that would also help me make a little bit of money to where there's like, okay, yeah, these are deep cuts or B-sides, whatever you want to call them. It's like I'll put 2 or 3 of those on the album to where it's like, yeah, if you want to listen to them, you just got to pay $10 for the record. I think that's fair. You can listen to the other stuff for free. So, if you want to hear these other few, and also kind of time along with the, that will make the whole story make sense. I'm hoping that works out. We'll see, but yeah.
Well, I've seen albums where, let's just say there's 10 tracks on the album. You can only buy 4 of them individually. Otherwise, you have to buy the entire album. So, yeah, why not?
Yeah, exactly. I think with the singles, have those available for stream and download, and then a couple other ones. But then even the intro to the album is kind of like this almost instrumental, like spoken word storytelling thing. I'm like, that might be cool if people just can only hear that if they buy the record. And
Yeah, because I don't think out of context it would even make sense. If you're just buying the one song, you're like, what the fuck is all this other stuff?
Totally. Exactly.
Nobody reads chapter 4 of a book. They read the whole book. And so if this is a story or a concept, then they're going to want the whole story.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to intro that song?
Sure. All right. This one's called No One Else. And this is the album version of the song with the extended vanity guitar solo. Take the song out. So enjoy.
Off the new album, The Vulture and The Fox by Dusty Bow.
Yes, sir.
Times you thought I was fooling around, and I was just drinking with my boys. All them nights I spent without you on the town, I'd still miss the sound of your voice. I'm telling you, baby, I don't want no one else. I don't want no one else. The feeling I get when you walk into the room lifts me off of my feet. Whether you're wearing your finest evening gown or that old shirt and worn out jeans, any chance to tell you I love you, I will. And I mean it exactly how it sounds. If there's a better way for me to show you that's real, I search high and low till it's found. I'm telling you, baby, I don't want no one else. I don't want no one else. Believe me, baby, I don't want no one else. I don't want no one else. When I say that I'm here for you, darling, this is until the end. I give you everything in the whole wide world, 'cause I never feel this way again. No, I'll never love this way again. I'm telling you, baby, I don't want no one else. I don't want no one else. Believe me, baby, I don't want no one else. I don't want no one else.
Oh, that was fantastic. I love how long it is.
Yeah.
I know that you mentioned previously that you went on a North American tour with Steel Panther.
Yes.
Can you briefly tell me, A, how excited were you when you found out you were going to go on a North American tour? And then how did the actual experience meet your expectations?
Oh man, it was funny because it's one of those things where the excitement was through the roof, because that was a huge milestone and why I wanted to do this all in the first place. You know, going back to when I first started playing guitar, I remember seeing the movie Almost Famous, and my good friend who showed me the movie was like, how would you like to do, it was when they were backstage before they were getting ready to go out and play, God, what was the name of that band? I can't remember. But either way, my buddy was like, how would you like to do that for a living? Just travel the world and play your guitar all day. And I was like, that's what I want to do. That sounds great. So when we landed it, I was very, very excited. And then it got to the point where we were also kind of equally as worried, because pretty much all of us had girlfriends or wives at the time. Are we going to come back and they're not going to want to be with us? Are we going to come back and still be able to get our jobs back? You know, so it was more exciting, but at the same time, there was like, this isn't just it. We're not going to go on this tour and then we're going to be doing this forever. We're going to be gone for a month and a half and then come back to reality. But the tour, it was phenomenal. It was really, really great. Unlike anything else, having that many people cheer and sing along with our songs too. You know, we'd get people singing along with the tunes. And so it was amazing, but it was equally as difficult because it's 35 to 45 minutes of bliss Every other hour of the day is work, like just driving for average 10, 12 hours a day, be able to put on a show with little, if not no sleep sometimes. So it was tough for sure, but it was an incredible, incredible experience that, memories that I'll never forget and cherish forever, for sure.
Well, speaking of never forgetting, how dare you? The band in Almost Famous was Stillwater. What's wrong with you?
Stillwater. Oh my God. I kept thinking Fever Dog, but that's the name of the song. Fever Dog. Stillwater. That's right.
Oh, and just real quick to go back, everybody, he mentioned earlier that he met Stephen O'Reilly at Mom's Music. Mom's Music is a music store. They sell musical equipment, and also they teach lessons and things. Is that right?
Yes, in Louisville.
So, Dusty, can you tell everybody where they can find you on social media?
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty much just, you can search Dusty Bow, Dusty, B as in boy, O as in ostrich. Anywhere on Facebook, it's at Dusty Bow Music. On Instagram, it's Dusty Vox, Dusty, V as in Valerie, OX. Twitter is the same, Dusty Vox. Also, TikTok is now a thing, which I can't stand, but that's something that I've just recently got on.
You and me both, brother.
Man, it's just, it's like, what's next? What's next, man? Snapchat, TikTok, it's just so much nonsense, man. It's like, what happened to just listening to music and going to concerts? What?
Yep, what happened to all that stuff? Real quick, everybody else would have said Victor Oscar xylophone. So shout out to your mom, Valerie.
Yeah, that's it.
Dusty, before I let you go, is there anything that we didn't talk about or I didn't ask you that you wanted to talk about?
No, man, I think that covers it. Hopefully at this point, things are open back up. We'll see. We're kind of all just riding the wave right now. So,
yeah, no shit. Hopefully all that shit will have passed by the time this comes out.
Yeah.
I'm crossing my fingers.
Yeah.
Oh, and if you enjoyed this episode with Dusty Bow, which I'm 1,000% sure you did, go back and check him out on his episode of the Barstar podcast with Stephen O'Reilly. That is available everywhere. So go check that out. It was a really good episode, and it was wildly different than this one.
Yeah, it was.
So they talked about a lot of different things, and Stephen is an actual musician, so they do talk more about that aspect of their relationship and their experiences. So go check that out for sure. Dusty, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day and your busy schedule to hang out and let us get to know you a little bit better on Fascination Street, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, man. Had a blast.
And you have a great rest of your week.
You too, brother.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Opening music is the song Magnolia from the 2001 album Intransigence, used with permission from Douglas Miles Clark. Closing music is from the song Say My Name off the 2021 album Underdog Anthems, used with permission from Jack's Hollow. If you like the show, tell a friend. Subscribe and rate and review the show on iTunes and wherever else you download podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. All the episodes are available there as well. Check me out on Vero at Fascination Street Pod and TikTok at Fascination Street Pod. And again, thanks for listening.